This parsha opens with a lot of discussion about Kesef. Avram he wants to buy Mars HaMachpelah with Kesef. Okay, that he says, "Tznu li achuzas kever ek baramiti." Okay, and then he says, "Let me meet Ephron." Okay, v'yiten li ma'amat hamachpelah b'kesef malay yitnenali. Should give it to me full price. And then they start arguing, and finally he ends up paying a lot of kesef. The Gemara learns out here that if you've had anybody who's learned the beginning of Maseches Kedushin knows that the source for which kinyan happens through kesef, kinyan kesef, is here from this parsha. It says vayikach, that he was lokeach. The kicha is an acquisition. It's a kinyan, and it happens through kesef. So we have the idea that a kinyan happens through kesef. What is kesef? So, if you think deeply and carefully about money, kesef is money. Money has no inherent use. You can't get to work with kesef. You can't satisfy your hunger with kesef. The only value kesef has is that through the kesef you can acquire something that has value, that has use. A car has use. A pizza has use. A computer has use. Kesef only gives you the ability to acquire the car that has use. It gives you the ability to acquire the pizza or the computer. Why do people want so much money? Kesef implies options. If I have money, I can't do anything with the money, but it gives me options to do other things. That's the power of Kesef. The word itself, Kesef, if you pay attention when you know what you're saying in Yedid Nefesh, nichsof nichsafti. Kesef, the root of the word is the desire, the longing. The money lets me acquire what I long for. It's a mechanism of acquisition. It has no inherent value. Why do people want so much money? Because people like options. We want to have lots of options. Options implies freedom, and the more options I have, the better off, the more comfortable I am. Lots of money, lots of options. Why does HaKadosh Baruch Hu give us options? Why does HaKadosh Baruch Hu give us money with the options? So you have to realize that when you go into a store and you take your money and you buy something, what you just have said is, with this money that I have lots of options, I am going to eliminate all the other options, and I'm going to actualize the potential that this money has with this option. If you go in and you buy a car, what you just said is that $50,000 that I could have used for lots and lots of other things, I'm not using it for anything else. It was a decision to eliminate options every time you spend money. When you talk about price, what price are you ready to pay? So what you really mean is, how much am I ready to give for option X instead of option Y? You're making decisions and you're eliminating. So you also have to think every time you actualize and choose option X, you've got to think carefully, what other options have I just eliminated? And then the price tells you, this option is worth more to me than that option. So we talk about a kinyan. Kinyan means to own something. When you are koneh something, what you're really doing is taking money that has multiple options, and you're channeling all of those options into one option. You're concentrating all the options into that one option. That makes it yours, because you eliminated all other options for this option. That's how you acquire something. Now it's your koneh. So this is true in the physical world. We're talking about money, and we're talking about physical resources. But we can also talk about this in the spiritual terms. Time is money. So therefore, when you make a decision how to spend your time, you have channeled that multiple options, because time is like money. In time, I have in an hour. During that hour, I have lots of options, and when I make a decision to use that time for X, what I have really said is that this X that I am now channeling my time is worth more to me than all the other options. Just like when I take that $50,000 and buy, I don't know, I'm way out of touch with prices today. Okay, I buy a Mazda. What I've said is that I could have done a lot of other things with that $50,000, and I've decided to eliminate them and focus on this. When you make a decision on how you're going to spend time, no pun intended, what you're doing is you are channeling all of the options that you had with that time. You're channeling them into what you are actually spending your time on. So whatever you're doing in that time could be called a kinyan. You now own whatever you're doing, whatever you're accomplishing in that time. HaKadosh Baruch Hu gives us in our life lots of resources. But all of those resources are options to accomplish. What do you want to accomplish? What can I acquire with those resources? Whether it's talents or whether it's time. You're supposed to actualize the potential that exists in every resource, turning it into something concrete. There's a phrase going around, it was going around in the feminist world many decades ago. I think they finally realized that it was false advertising. You can have it all. No. You can't have it all. Every time you make a decision, you're making a decision. You have potential to have it all. You can make any decision you want. You have time, you have money. With that money, you can have lots of things. Lots and lots of things in the store, in the city. But at the end of the day, when you spend that money, you've got to spend it on one thing, the thing that you want. And you are therefore eliminating all the other options. So, whenever you choose how you're spending time, whenever you choose how to spend your money, what you're saying is, I want this instead of that. You always have to think about the instead of. We don't usually do it. Okay? We go into the store and, I don't know, you buy a chocolate bar. You don't think about, okay, I bought the chocolate bar because I wanted the chocolate bar instead of the ice cream. That's really what you're doing without even thinking about it. So when you make a decision on how you're going to spend your time, you have to think about, I'm spending my time to do this instead of that. Because until you actually spend the time, all the options are open. Just like until you spend the money, all the options are open. In Kabbalistic literature, Kesef is compared to Chomer. These are very abstract Kabbalistic concepts. We'll try to make it a little accessible. Chomer is raw material. And Chomer, when you have the raw material, there are lots of options. You can turn that Chomer into many, many different things. And the goal is to take Chomer and impose upon it what's called tsura. When you have a piece of wood, which is considered Chomer, I'm oversimplifying this immensely. When you have a piece of wood, which is Chomer, that piece of wood could be an arrow, a chair, a table. It has lots of options. When you impose upon it a tsura, again, the English words are very hard to say whether it's talking about form or content, but the idea is you have now made that wood, which has lots of options. Chomer always has options, and what you've done is you've imposed upon it a tsura, some kind of a unique thing that now eliminates all the other possibilities. When you made it into a table, it can't be an arrow anymore. Money is called chomer. And what we're supposed to do is take the chomer, the money, which represents any of our resources, which can be directed in many directions, where we have talents and we can use them in many ways. So any talent is raw material, and how you use it, what you do with it, that's the tsura. So all the inherent possibilities, again, you realize money has no inherent value. Possibilities have no inherent value. You only turn possibilities into value when you choose to use them for one specific purpose, meaning you eliminate all the other purposes. That's what gives it value. Money only has value when you decide what you want to buy with it. One of the things that you choose, how do you choose what to do? And again, as I mentioned before, life, you're alive in this world. As long as you're alive, God gives you lots of options. Lots of options. And your job is to take those options and choose one of those options. And how do you make that decision? So now we have another very, very cryptic word in the beginning of this week's Parsha. Rashi helps us unpack it based on Kabbalistic understanding. If you prepared your Parsha, you probably didn't even notice it, because you didn't think that it was a problem word, but it really is. When Avram is coming to Bnei Chet and he wants to meet Ephron, so he says, Vayidaber itam lemor, im yesh et nafshechem likbor et metim milfanai, shma'uni ufigu li b'Ephron ben Sochar. Literal translation, if it is your nafshechem, your nefesh, to enable me to bury, etc., etc. What is this im yesh es nafshechem? Says Rashi, what does the word nafshechem mean? Says Rashi, nafshechem ritzonchem. Nafshechem ritzonchem. So we just shifted words. What he really meant to say is, if it's your will to let me meet Ephron. So why is the word ritzonchem, your will, used with the word nafshechem, which means your life, nefesh? Says the Kabbalistic literature, ki haratzon hu hanefesh. If you want to play a very deep, scary game, think about what you want. And then ask yourself why you want it. And if you can answer why you want X, so you don't really want X. You want X because of Y. I want X because it's going to give me Y. So you don't want X, you want Y. I want money so that I can buy a car. And why do you want a car? So that. And every time you can answer the so that, you haven't really wanted what you said you wanted. You wanted the so that. And here's the scary part. You will reach a point where you can't answer the question, so what? For what? Why that? And you say, I can't answer that question. I just want that. That's you. What are your real wants? What you really want. That's the nefesh. So when you make decisions, and you usually go and spend time or money on what you want, you have to ask yourself, really, why do I want that? Okay? You came to yeshiva, Baruch Hashem. You made a decision. You realized you had lots of options. And you chose this option, eliminating all the other options, many of which your parents told you you're nuts for eliminating them. But you made a decision because that's what you wanted. Now it could be, I wanted to come to yeshiva because I want to have the tools to fit into an Orthodox community. So you didn't really want yeshiva. You wanted to fit into an Orthodox community, but you couldn't get there without coming to yeshiva. And why do you want to fit into an Orthodox community? Because I need a sense of community. You realize how this plays out. So I don't want you to go too far with it, and don't think that, so I didn't really want to come to yeshiva. Yes, you did. Baruch Hashem. Okay? But you've got to know that you're making decisions because of things that you want. Ki harotzon hu hanefesh. That's you. And you made good decisions. Sometimes your nefesh may not be so good. And that's where we come into the Yetzer Hara. What is it? That's a very strange word that Chazal invented. Yetzer Hara. Why are we calling a Yetzer Hara? So if you are sensitive to the language, you should see the combination of the word Yetzer and Tzura. You have instincts, you have talents, you have all kinds of options, all kinds of possibilities. All of that is Chomer. Your job now is to impose a Tzura on that Chomer, impose some meaning, some effective use of that Chomer by fashioning it into something that's limiting all the other things. But the Yetzer Hara, the Ra means that it's not leading to anything substantial. Ra, always in the Talmudic and Kabbalistic literature, when something is Ra, means it's cut off, it has no future. So too often, we make decisions on how to use resources that really aren't leading anywhere. And our job is to take the chomer, take the raw material that we have, and impose on it a tzura that is Yetzer Tov, that's heading somewhere, that's going to accomplish something. It's true with your money, and you have to realize that it's true with the most valuable commodity that you have, the most irreplaceable commodity, and that's called time. When they say out there in the world, time is money, so what's the most important thing in their world? The most important thing is money. Except time turns into money, so I better not waste time, because if I waste time, I'm really wasting money. Time is money. Because to them, money is what gives me all the options. We have to realize time is what we really want. And time is your coin of decision. When you spend time, there's no pun is intended here. You're spending time, whatever you spend time on, you're spending it on that and not on anything else. And there has to be a very deep, clear decision on that. What are you doing? And that's while you're in yeshiva. It's when you leave yeshiva. It's decisions on how am I spending my resources. And again, till you actually spend them, all the options are open. And your job is now to make a decision and eliminate all the options. And sometimes we eliminate all the options and we chose a bad option. That's Yetzer Hara. And hopefully we eliminate all the options and choose the good option, the right option, that has purpose, that's leading somewhere. Another strange thing that Chazal teaches against the simple interpretation of the words. After we finish the parsha of Avram acquiring Ma'amat HaMachpelah with Kesef, it then says V'Avraham Zaken Babi Yamin. So we're used to thinking, and he was an old man by that time, right? He was an old man. He was 137 years old. So the simple understanding is he was an old man. Chazal say no. The word Zaken is a combination of the words Ze Kana Chachma. A Zaken is somebody who acquired wisdom. He acquired wisdom. in the end of his life, he has a kinyan in chachma, in wisdom. So all of his life was spent with acquisitions, and the acquisitions were all high-level acquisitions. That happens at the end of your life. So there's a phrase in Eov where he talks about his youth. And he uses the phrase Yemei Chorpi. Chorpi means winter. Now when you think of winter, we think of a time when nothing is being produced. Winter is when everything is dormant, right? And nothing's happening. Nothing happens in winter. Okay? And ironically, in the secular world, you talk the winter of your life is talking about old age. Okay? How strange it is to be 70 and it's over. People think that old people, it's over. It's the winter of their life. That's the phrase. In our world, it's exactly the opposite. Why is our youth called winter? Because in the winter, everything is dormant and all the possibilities are open and haven't yet been actualized. So in your youth, you have lots and lots of possibilities. When you get old, you actualize them already. There aren't any more possibilities. When you're old, you've already actualized the possibilities. And how did you actualize them? So you have to realize that you are in a situation now where all the possibilities are open. You have lots of kesef. You have lots of time. You have lots of possibilities. And we have to make good decisions. Just like financial planning says make good decisions on how you spend your money. Don't fritter it away, that so many people do because of the urge of the moment. That's what advertising is built on, try to get you to spend money on things you don't really need. Right? So financial planning is think about how you're spending your money for purpose. How you're spending your time for purpose. How are you spending your resources for purpose? All of that is turning the chomer that you have, the raw material, the time, the money, the talents, the potential. How are you going to turn that into product? How are you going to turn that into chachma, to wisdom, to spiritual growth, which is the ultimate purpose of this world? How much are you ready to pay? What price will you pay? Which means when I pay a price for X, I am eliminating Y. That's the decision. We don't always think about it like that. We need to think about it like that. And when you do that, everything that you spend that time on with such a decision, that becomes a kinyan. You own it. We talk about kinyan Torah. How do I acquire Torah? You acquire Torah by devoting yourself to Torah and using resources that were available for lots of things, and you focus it on Torah. Good midos, all of the spiritual things, you have to take your resources, which is your coin, and you've got to spend it on things that are going to give you long-term value that you can look at the end of your life. As Avram said, Kana Chachma, I used all of those resources and I made tremendously valuable acquisitions. That's Kana Chachma, that's the kinyan. But yeah, it has to start with how am I spending my resources? How am I spending my time?